I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. Today we're going to deal with the topic of discovering your core values. In the ministry design process, as you as the pastor serve as your ministry design architect, there are 4 stages or phases that we have divided the process into: discovery, design, delivery, and direction. Today we're going to deal with discovery of your core values. It is foundational to your moving forward with your design process. We have provided for you 4 webinars concerning core values. In the first one, we talked about what are core values and gave their distinctions. In the second one, we talked about the power and importance, or the dominance, of your core values, how it affects your ministry and lives. In the third one, we talk about how to discover your core values and discern how to move ahead with them. In the one today, we're going to talk about the development, the delivery, and defending your core values. First, I want you to take note that as you develop your core values statement, who is responsible to prepare your statement? Well, you as the senior pastor, your senior leadership. We would recommend that you be at the lead of this, but you might also involve your board, whether you have deacons or elders, or stewards, or others who make up your church board, or perhaps a special committee made up of key leaders or key influencers. You need to have people who can have great discernment, who are walking with God and in tune with His voice, who have common sense and can make good judgments, and who understand the importance and the overall process of your ministry design. What values are to be included in your statement? First off, you're going to have your own personal values of your leadership, of you and your senior leadership, your board or the special committee. They're going to be questioning and hopefully identifying their individual core values. And as we stated about this topic in the dominance of core values, is that when people don't match up with your values, you want them to identify that and decide at what point are they going to need to depart from your ministry and find a ministry where they do have core values that are in alignment with another ministry. Values from the different ministries in your church, your ministry directors, your children, your teens, your college career, young adults, young marrieds, and empty nesters and seniors, and on you go with the different ministries in your church or your service ministries outside of your doors. Whatever you're doing, you're going to have some core values put together from them. And the third one is your whole congregation. You've got to manage and bring together in a unified way the core values of your leadership and your ministry leaders and your entire congregation. Then you have select values that motivate and energize everyone. You want to make certain that the values you include in your value statement are the ones that will energize and inspire your congregation. If they fall flat, then don't use them. Next, why write your core values down? Why would you bother to put them into a statement? Isn't that going to paint yourself into a corner? Isn't it going to cause trouble? Is this something there's so much disagreement? Dare we write them down? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. I think you want to write them down because you want to test their clarity. Do people see them clearly? You want to test their commitment quotient. You say that this is what people are doing. This comes from their habits and their character and their actions. Are they going to commit to them? Is there a commitment quotient? What is it? What about their compliance? Are they going to actually carry them out? It's one thing to say you commit to them. It's another thing to actually live by them. What about testing the values, the statement's ability to communicate? Is it concise? Is it clear? Is it compelling? Can it be comprehended? You want to test their power to generate community. Is it going to bring everybody together? If you have hit on the 3 to 7 to 8 key values that are driving your ministry, it will generate community. It will generate teamwork among your people. Lastly, it should test your discovery and discernment process. When you write it down, if you've discovered the right ones and discern which ones to really focus and narrow your focus to, it will test how well a job you've done in discovering and discerning which ones to put into writing. Next is, how do you write your core values down? I'm not talking about with the pencil or pen with a magic marker or crayon or a piece of chalk or watercolors. I'm talking about, how many do you include? How do you write them down? How many do you include? Too many values in your statement waters down their impact. And you won't know if it's, which one do they focus on? Which one do they focus on? And so you want to make certain that they understand the key ones. So too many is not good. Too few doesn't get your whole set of core values. How can you characterize and summarize in a way that really impacts and influences people and rallies them, energizes them when they realize, hey, what's important to the church is important to me. I can invest myself in it. Too few, if you have just 2 of them or 1 of them, you really can't capture the whole set of core values that is driving your congregation, because it's going to be more than 1. It's going to be a number. Now, you've got churches with 15 and 20, and you've got churches with 3. Probably the average is somewhere between 6 and 9, but I don't know that anyone's ever looked at every core value statement by every church in North America. The point is, you've got to balance this out and navigate your way through as you write them down, how you do it, and what do you include. List only the common causes that are driving your people. There is a difference here, and we make distinctions in an earlier webinar, between doctrinal beliefs and those that drive you. And everyone believes, or should believe, that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, that he is deity, that he died for our sins, that Scripture is infallible, without error, and inspired of God. They should believe those things, and it drives and directs our practice of life, our beliefs. Then I want you to understand that the functions versus the form. When you get to this, you may say, well, I gave some examples here. Your biblical community is your function. That's your core value. You believe that's a value, that you develop genuine, authentic, biblical community. Small groups is a way to create the value. Teaching the Word of God is the value, but adult Bible studies is a form by which you create or carry out the function of teaching. Outreach. Well, you can do it in any number of ways. In my lifetime as a pastor, guys used bus ministry and door-to-door and vacation Bible school and big events, city crusades, invitational tournaments for high school basketball, and I did all kinds of things as a senior pastor in 18 years. So outreach is the value. You value souls, so you value witnessing, because that's obedience to God's Word. So canvassing the neighborhood is just one way of outreach, just as adult Bible studies is one way of teaching, and small groups is one way of creating community. Then there's fellowship. Well, home Bible study is the form, but it's not the function. You value fellowship among the believers? Well, home Bible study is one way of doing it. But having another type of activity or program or project in your church could fulfill the value of fellowship. Now, List your core values in priority of importance. Determine the format of your core value statement. It should be short. It should be simple. It should be sound, biblically sound. It should be significant, important. It should be clear, crisp, concise, compelling, and comprehensible. Not incomprehensible, comprehensible. So it had better be good writing. And when you put it together, that's how you're going to format it in this way. Short, simple, sound, and significant, then clear, crisp, concise, compelling, and comprehensible. And you've got to judge if what you've put together, if it meets that criteria. If your statements are too long and running on one to another, and there's too many of them, and they're not clear what they're saying, or it's not resonating with the people, then you haven't done a good job of discovering and discerning which ones to develop. What is in the content of each core value in your statement? Number one, there better be an introduction. You want to introduce what you're doing. I'll give you some examples in writing or direct you to some of them on our website with this webinar. Matter of fact, there'll be a number of documents and resources and references to give you for you to further your study so you can master this. An introduction, an explanation, and then some biblical support of the value. So that helps to explain it, and we'll introduce it in people's thinking. How do you know if your statement is well written? Well, first off, it's effective. It's going to attract attention. People are going to agree with it, and it's going to attract activity. So you're going to know it because they're going to talk about it. They're going to say they agree with it. They're energetic about it, and then it's going to affect the way they live. How do you know your statement is well written? It produces teamwork. Your congregation buys into them. Your congregation takes ownership of them. Your congregation partners with you in them. Your congregation participates as a team. Your congregation is thankful to be a part of a church with such core values. They take pride in what God is doing as they partner with Him, and they take pride in being a part of your congregation. It produces teamwork, and that's what I'm describing here. How do you know if your core value statement is well written? It produces clarity. It summarizes your congregation. Who are they in their character, culture, cause, in their code, in their conduct? At the very core, it's going to produce clarity about who your congregation is in their character, culture, cause, and conduct. Now, you've got to deliver the statement. You've developed it. It's written down. You've determined that it meets the criteria you've set. You feel like it's going to really communicate and develop wholeness and unity and harmony, and it's going to develop teamwork and a cohesive document that brings your people together and makes them like a spearhead, and it's going to drive us the point of your ministry as it moves forward to gain movement and momentum. So now you're going to deliver it or display your core values. So where are you going to do that? Well, certainly in your congregation, right? But also to all your guests. So you're reaching out into the community and to your guests as they come on your campus, and your people are talking about it and wherever they go. So you're going to have to display it where people can see it so they can be confronted with it, hopefully understand it, agree with it, and put it into action. It will give them intentional living when they identify their core values. It's a powerful thing. Now, how are you going to display it? Well, through preaching and teaching. Your teachers are going to deal with it. You're going to deal with it in the pulpit, on the radio. You're going to have conversations and maybe family meetings to discuss these, and maybe in discovering them, you had family meetings and went through some of the things that Aubrey Malphurs gives in his book with storyboarding and letting your congregation take surveys and audits and so forth to help them get it. But now you're going to talk about it in all these different formats. Your bulletins and newsletters, your social media avenues. Man, tweet it. Put it in your blogs. Use Facebook. Talk about it on LinkedIn. All the different ways, and there are new ones being created all the time, that your people, if they're a part of the social media, they ought to be getting your values. And so they would read them on their phones, or read them on their computers. Now, you can tell stories, dramas, and special events. The fact is, you want to find all the different ways that you can get the word out about what your core values are, the importance of them, and you teach your people and challenge them through all these different methods. Videos and podcasts. You're using a video right now. Why wouldn't you make a video up and then show it to your church, put it on your website, blog about it, tweet about it, talk about it on Facebook, get people to like it, and spread the word? The answer is you should and you can. So what are you trying to accomplish by displaying your core values? Well, you want to move from their head to their heart. So you go from their understanding, comprehension, to commitment, and then to their hands, to service, where they are going to carry it out, their conduct. So from comprehension to commitment to conduct. You want to recruit new people. You want to get good people who can come in and help strengthen your ministry to fulfill the Great Commission. You want to penetrate the innermost being of your people. Many, if not most, of our believers in our churches, our church members, have never really thought about identifying what motivates them, what drives them at the very core of who they are, what's most important to them. They're living them out every day. They're living them out, and your ministry is living these out. So you can have a real ministry to help people understand and penetrate the very core of their being, down to the depth of their soul, by confronting them with this whole process. You want to create commitment in the will of your people. You want to aid their memory, keep drawing them back to the biblical core values that you guys have agreed upon and are seeking to live out, and then you measure the effectiveness of carrying them out, how you do it. You want to stir them to action. You know, this is easier if you have tapped into the soul of your congregation and accurately discovered and stated their genuine core values. Who is going to communicate your core values? Well, your pastoral staff needs to take the lead, and your lay leaders, and then your key influencers, and maybe a special committee put together. But ultimately, don't you want people in every area of your ministry to communicate it, and for your people to talk about it wherever they are, over the fence, at the gym, at the ball game, at the grocery store, at church, and then in every other community event and avenue of life? So here's the last thing. You've developed them, you've delivered them to the people, and now you're going to have to preserve and defend your core value statement, because it's going to come under attack. I'd be surprised if it didn't. How will you get your core values to stick? Well, you're going to teach them that. You're going to educate people, explain it to them. You're going to give examples of them so you live them out. Things are taught and caught, so you want them to catch them by modeling and cultivating your culture so that it becomes a part of your culture to carry out your core values, by training people, by promoting and rewarding them. You get what you reward, so reward them, promote it, train. And if you've hit on the reality, the truth, you've hit the nail on the head with identifying their core values and developing and packaging them in such a way that they can understand them and commit to them, then you reward them, and it drives people to do that. So they'll honor the values that they identify with as you reward them. Storytelling. Get people to tell their stories. So you want to teach them. You want them to catch them. There is an acceptance process. Ken Blanchard talks about it in managing your core values. He says they first must learn about the core values. He calls it knowledge. The first step in the process is knowledge. The second one is they must accept them mentally. Then they must put them into action in their personal lives. And so it deals with knowledge and attitudes. And then action, conduct, behavior. They must band together as a congregation to adopt them as creed and conduct. So let's say that the majority of your people, and at least the majority of your leadership, identify with the core values that you have discovered and discerned, that you have developed and delivered to them, communicated to them. So you've done values casting. And now you're finding you're getting some pushback, and people are confronting you with this, and there's some conflict boiling. You want to have the group band together as a congregation to adopt them. So organizationally, there needs to be harmony and unity in order for them to come together, because you're going to have come out of your midst those who are going to challenge you. So patience is needed as this process of acceptance. For they know what they are, their attitudes accept them, their heart accepts them, they put them into action, their hands and feet are carrying them out, and they've come together as a team, and it takes 2 to 3 years for people to go through the acceptance process. There will be some who won't agree, or some that don't quite understand if they agree, and you've got to be patient with this. And so while you're doing this for your church, why don't you look at developing a process to help individuals who are willing and wanting to go through to identify their individual core values? It will help them. So what can erode your core values? Conflicts and challenges can erode your core values. So you're a year into this, you're 2 years into this, people are coming at you, time and complacency, where you just kind of go on them in a kind of out of sight, out of mind, because you failed to continue to preach on them, teach on them, put them in the bulletins, blog on them, have family meetings about them, talk about them over the fence between you and your neighbor's house, and so forth and so on. And so how do you protect and preserve your core values? Provide living examples of them. Regularly make them the topic of your conversations. Work to attract new people to adopt them. It becomes the cultural thing to come to church and then to adopt those core values and work in them and through them. Pause to realign them when needed. Correction is normal, folks. Keep them on course. Set value standards and enforce them. Prepare to defend and defeat those that challenge them. You're going to have people who come up, and you create a situation, they do, where you have dueling values. And the people that do that may be your fighters. They're trying to distract people from the core values, or they don't feel they're important, or they don't like the new values that have come out of your research and investigation, and you've identified some things about your people, and now they feel like you've left the forms that you were carrying out the function. They feel like now you're doing Bible study differently, and they don't understand that that's for you to disciple people. That's the core value, is to make disciples, and you were using home Bible studies to do it, or Sunday school to do it, or some children's program. And so they begin to distract you. They begin to try and defeat you. They try to feel like you're making this big mistake. And Aubrey Malphurs, in his book Values-Driven Leadership, he calls them value vampires. They're sucking the life right out of you. The second one are feeders. They want to dissolve over time. They may be more passive. He calls these the vultures. They're just circling overhead, and their presence is there, and it may worry you because you know something's dying or dead. And so they're there. You're going to have dueling values. You're going to have fighters that distract you from your purpose and your values. You're going to have feeders that are like vultures, and they come to try and dissolve your values, the status quo. They'll fight against, and you've got to deal with it, so you might as well prepare for it. It's a part of fighting for the faith and standing for the faith. And they're going to come out of your own congregation. Let me give a special thanks to Aubrey Malphurs for providing so much information to help us understand, identify, state, and preserve our core values through these webinars. His books on value-driven leadership, discovering and developing your core values for ministry is a good foundational tool. I've used it. Part of these webinars, part of the source has come from him, and there are others, but this is a book you can find on our website. Take you directly to Amazon to read the reviews and my review and be able to get it. I would suggest as you move forward with this that you do two things mechanically. Number one, you go buy his book. Number two, you do some research on the internet to find other articles that have been written. Because looking, as I have searched now for some time for a book on church core values, discovering them and developing them, I've really come up dry. There's some older stuff that's been written, but his book is a source I want to direct you to, and to thank him here in the webinar for the work that he is doing, both as a college professor, seminary teacher, and as a church consultant. He does good work. Now, I'm Marshall Shannon, with your Ministry Design Coach, with Ministry Design Training. Our website and company is Ministry Design Concepts. You can reach me at this address or either of these two phone numbers. And I trust the Lord's blessing on you as you move ahead to discover and develop and live by your core values.